Good morning, all. I'll call the meeting to order. First thing for consideration today is the agenda for today's meeting. Dan moves approval of the agenda as presented. All those in favor? Carried. Next for consideration is the, since we didn't have a meeting in January, the minutes of the December 10th, 2024 meeting. Dustin moves approval of the minutes from the December 10th meeting. All those in favor? Carried. So first for consideration today is development application, development permit 2501, existing Met Tower. Becky, you're in an unusual spot there.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be presenting from this table today.
Okay.
And the applicants, there's enough room for them to join me when you ask them up.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So do we have a representative here for application 2501? Would you please come take one of the chairs up front? And if you would just introduce yourself, please.
Hello, yeah. My name is Ria Cherian. I am a representative for NG North America. I will be representing the Buffalo Trail Wind Project today. I recently joined NG, so it's new for me, but hoping to work with you all on this project.
Excellent. Thank you for attending today. Okay, so this one, Becky, go ahead with this application, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is development permit 25/01 in Ward 4, and it's for an existing meteorological tower. The owner of the property is Gerald Otto, and the applicant is NG Development Canada. This is located on the northeast 411-3 west of the 4th, and the property is 156.83 acres in size, and is currently zoned Agricultural District 2. The applicant is requesting approval from the Municipal Planning Commission for an existing meteorological tower for wind monitoring on an agricultural parcel. The applicant had currently received development permit 17/215 for this tower and location, however, the permit has expired. The property is located adjacent to Highway 41 and approximately 8 kilometers south of Highway 1. The parcel is currently vacant and gains access from Highway 41 from an existing access approach. As the letter of intent indicates, the purpose of the Met Tower is to provide wind resource monitoring for the Buffalo Trail Wind Project. There have been no modifications made to the existing equipment or infrastructure since the 2017 approval. In addition, no changes to the footprint, location, operations, or activities have been made. The applicant anticipates for the tower to remain at this location until 2029. In the Land Use Bylaw 2022-09, there is no specific use or regulations pertaining to meteorological towers when an existing wind farm does not exist. Therefore, the proposal would fall under other uses in the Agricultural District 2 as a Class 2 discretionary use requiring consideration from the Municipal Planning Commission. The general purpose and intent of the Agricultural District 2 is to protect and enhance the agricultural production of products, goods and support services in compatible land uses. We did circulate the application, and Alberta Transportation replied that the proposed development falls within the permit area of a provincial highway as outlined in the Highways Development and Protection Act regulation. The proposed development, however, will not cause any concern for ongoing highway operation or future highway expansion. Transportation and Economic Corridors therefore issues an exemption from the permit requirements for the development listed pursuant to Section 25 of the Highways Development and Protection Regulation. Pursuant to Section 618.3 of the Municipal Government Act, the Department expects the municipality will comply with any applicable items related to provincial highways in an ALSA plan if applicable. In addition, pursuant to Section 618.4 of the Municipal Government Act, the Department expects that the municipality will mitigate the impacts of traffic generated by developments approved on the local road connections to the highway system in accordance with Policy 7 of the provincial land use policies. I did grab some pictures for you guys of this location. So this is looking northwest from Township Road 110. In the distance, you can see the existing tower. A little bit closer of a picture from the same location. And we're looking northeast back towards Highway 41. And just another shot there for you. So my recommendation, Mr. Chairman, is to approve development permit application 2501, subject to the following conditions and with the understanding that it will be constructed as outlined in the submitted application. Any changes must be submitted for approval by the development officer or Municipal Planning Commission. We've got conditions 1 through 7 are standard conditions. So I'll jump to number 8, which is the developer is responsible to notify Cypress County upon the removal of the tower and reclamation of the lands. I have an alternative motion, and that is to refuse development permit application 2501 as the proposal does not comply with the general purpose and intent of the Agricultural District 2 as stated in the Land Use Bylaw 2022-09. And that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Becky. Ms. Sherian, would you like to speak to this application at this time?
I just want to give an update about the project, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Please go ahead.
Sure. So, Mr. Chairman, we received the AUC approval. We went through a long stakeholder process and got the AUC approval in the end of 2023. Following that, the ASO informed the stakeholders that there is some congestion in the transmission system in this project area. So we had to revise our, and basically there would be some transmission upgrades for us to put capacity on the lines. And hence we had to delay the in-service date for this project to 2028 because that would be when the plant upgrades get installed in 2027. And hence this is where we are with the project. There's also an overhaul of the transmission regulation at the ASO. So we're also waiting for more information on that. Hopefully will come out end of 2025. So the dates right now we're looking at right now for construction start date is Q3 of 2026 with in-service of Q1 2028 and beginning of commercial operations in Q2 of 2028.
Okay, thank you. So your AUC approval for this project does not have a time limit? So
it does have a time limit. We are looking into extending the studies that are required for keeping that AUC approval in place. So we are going to undertake all those studies in 2026 to preserve that AUC approval.
okay, so what is the time limit of the AUC approval then? When is it set to expire?
I believe it's 2028. So
Okay.
we're really just within the limit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll open the floor to discussion. Questions? Motions? Dustin moves approval of development application 2501 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried. So you're here for the next one as well, so I'll read the approval wording after we do that final consideration. But for now, this has been approved. So now we'll move on to development application 25/02. Go ahead again, Becky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Development permit 25/02. This is in Ward 3 for an existing meteorological tower. The owner of the property is the estate of Alistair Otto, and applicant again is NG Canada. This is located on the northeast 3593 west of the 4th and is 155.01 acres in size, and the land use district is Agricultural District 2. The applicant is requesting approval from the Municipal Planning Commission for an existing meteorological tower for wind monitoring on an agricultural parcel. The applicant had currently received development permit 17/214 for this tower and location. However, the permit has expired. The property is located at the corner of Highway 515 and Range Road 31, approximately 2.4 kilometers east of Highway 41. The parcel is currently vacant and gains access from Highway 515. As the letter of intent indicates, the purpose of the Met Tower is to provide wind resource monitoring for the Buffalo Trail Wind Project. There have been no modifications made to the existing equipment or infrastructure since the 2017 approval. In addition, no changes to the footprint, location, operations, or activities have been made. And similar to the last one, the applicant anticipates that the tower will remain at this location until 2029. In the Land Use Bylaw 2022-09, there is no specific uses or regulations pertaining to meteorological towers when an existing wind farm does not exist. Therefore, the proposal would fall under other uses in the Agricultural District 2 as a Class 2 discretionary use requiring consideration from the Municipal Planning Commission. The general purpose and intent of the Agricultural District 2 is to protect and enhance the agricultural production of products, goods, and support services and compatible land uses. We circulated, and again, Alberta Transportation replied that the proposed development falls within the permit area of a provincial highway as outlined in the Highways Development and Protection Act. The proposed development, however, will not cause any concern for ongoing highway operation or future highway expansion. Transportation and Economic Corridors therefore issues an exemption from the permit requirements for the development listed pursuant to Section 25 of the Highways Development and Protection Regulation. Pursuant to Section 618.3 of the Municipal Government Act, the department expects that the municipality will comply with any applicable items related to provincial highways in an ALSA plan if applicable. In addition, pursuant to Section 618.4 of the Municipal Government Act, the department expects that the municipality will mitigate the impacts of traffic generated by developments approved on the local road connections to the highway system in accordance with Policy 7 of the provincial land use policies. So I have a few pictures also. So this is looking south at your existing Met Tower from Highway 515. It's the same picture. Looks like we got a couple of the same picture. And then we're looking east down Highway 515 and west. I think that concludes pictures. So that takes me to my recommendation, Mr. Chairman, and that is to approve development permit application 2502, subject to the following conditions and with the understanding that it will be constructed as outlined in the submitted application. Any changes must be submitted for approval by the development officer or Municipal Planning Commission. And again, 1 through 7 are standard conditions, and number 8, the developer is responsible to notify Cypress County upon the removal of the tower and reclamation of the lands. An alternative motion to refuse development permit application 2502 as the proposal does not comply with the general purpose and intent of the Agricultural District 2 as stated in the Land Use Bylaw 2022-09. That is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Becky. Ms. Sherian, do you have anything to add to this one?
No.
Okay, thank you. I'll open the floor to discussion, consideration, motions. Okay, Nigel moves approval of development application 2502 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, so since your development permit has been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed, the county will mail you a copy of your development permit. Since this is a discretionary use, there's a 3-week appeal period that the public may appeal the issuance of the permit. The permit will be advertised in Cypress Courier newspaper for a duration of 3 consecutive weeks. If no appeal is filed within 21 days from date of issue, the permit will become valid at that time. If you have any further questions, you may contact the development officer to discuss them after today's meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the council members.
So our next applicant, Mr. Mimenovic, will be in attendance for the, okay, so we're going to jump to the planner's report while we await his arrival. Kayleen, do you have a presentation or discussion or any information to provide us?
Thank you, through the chair. The planner's report for both January and February months are attached for your information. I think notable coming out of this planner's report is we did receive the decision back from the Land and Property Rights Tribunal. Back in November, there was an appeal lodged by adjacent landowners to the tribunal concerning the approval of a Class 1 gravel pit. And the tribunal did uphold the decision of the Municipal Planning Commission, and they altered 2 of the conditions on the development permit. One of which the commission had imposed a condition for hours of operation. The tribunal amended that decision to also include statutory holidays. And then secondly, there was concerns about the timelines in which the applicant had conducted their wildlife studies. And therefore, the tribunal had requested that the applicant, prior to commencing the pit itself, that they conduct a wildlife sweep prior to commencement. So those are the 2 additional conditions that they've added. We will have a public hearing concerning the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan tomorrow evening at the Medicine Hat College, starting at 6:30. So friendly reminder to our councillors that are here today, please be there for 6 o'clock tomorrow. And we also held a series, our first 2 open houses concerning the land use bylaw. We held open houses last week here at the council chambers, and then also over the weekend in the hamlet of Irvine. And we will also be holding open houses in Suffield and Hilda towards the end of the month. And also attached to the chair is some information on our statistics for development permits that were issued for the 2024 calendar year. Thank you, Ingrid. So for the Planning Commission members that haven't seen this before, annually we like to bring forward statistics to kind of see what our year-over-year trends are looking like. So for the year 2024, we had 200 permits that were processed, which is up by 50 permits from the year 2023. And largely due, I think you'll see on the graph attached, that we had quite a large spike again in renewable energy projects for wind and solar projects, which likely makes up that difference. And also notable is that we had 31 new residential builds in 2024, which is quite exciting as well. We've calculated the timelines, average date timelines for approval of our development permits. And discretionary 2 applications requiring approval of this commission averaged about a 57-day timeline, which is accounted for circulation timelines that are required. Commonly, there's a 2-week time period associated with those permits. And then also the timeline in which it takes to get those recommendations onto this commission onto an agenda. And in addition, for staff-approved development permits, so just permitted uses and Class 1 discretionary, we averaged a timeline of 16 days for those approvals, which is under the provincial mandatory timeline, which is 21 days. Are there any questions on the statistics? Seeing none.
Question. So what are the main barriers to approval of permits from the staff that cause 16 days or 21 days or whatever it happens to be?
Through the chair, that's a great question. Working through some of our workflows, I think we've overextended some of our circulations. So when we're processing some of the applications, we pull the Alberta land title, which we need to be doing. But then there's also some of the utility right-of-ways that might be registered on title. So for perhaps gas pipelines, power companies, not always do we need to be circulating every application to those utility providers. It's also their responsibility to be making sure they're doing their locates. So when we're sometimes circulating those applications, we might be adding on 2 weeks to allow for those response periods. So I think we've had a discussion internally, if we're able to kind of narrow down those circulation, I guess that kind of rationale of why we're circulating them, I think we'll be able to speed up those timelines incredibly faster.
So the circulation of those to the affected parties that's governed by the Municipal Government Act, is that correct? The method and how and the timelines and such?
For some applications it is. For subdivisions, as an example, there's a mandatory 21-day circulation period that we must allow for adjacent landowners, government departments, adjacent municipalities, landowners. But through our land use bylaw, we're not obligated to circulate every development application. For discretionary applications, we do have an obligation to circulate decisions, but not necessarily the application itself.
So I do see a lot of, on these applications that come to us, a lot of times, a good percentage of the times, there's no comment back from these circulations. So I'm wondering if there's any ways to streamline that we could get things done quicker.
Yeah, through the chair, and in some of those cases with particularly discretionary applications coming to the Planning Commission, we tend to err on the side of caution. In the event if we do receive a lodged appeal, that's obviously going to lengthen out the timeline on a permit decision. So there is the ability, I think, there for staff to use discretion based on the type of application that it is, what's surrounding in the area.
And, sorry, I don't want to belabor this, but what is the methodology for circulation? Is it mailed out? Is it emailed? Is it phone calls? What are the accepted methods of circulation?
Commonly for the counties, parties that we circulate to, a lot of them are email sent. Some of them still prefer to receive notification by mail. So a very few and far between will receive a notice in the mail.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And then in addition, through the chair, we also have attached to the planner's report the annual review permits. So on this spreadsheet are permit applications that the Municipal Planning Commission has attached an annual review condition to. And that allows for these development permits to come back to Planning Commission on a yearly basis and offer opportunity if there's any questions or concerns that you wish to raise on any of them. So at this point, this is just being provided for your information as part of the planner's report.
Anything else?
That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman. The recommendation is that the Planning Commission accept for information.
Okay, I'm going to open the floor to discussion, questions, concerns. Lloyd moves it. Okay, so Lloyd moves approval of the information as presented. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Kayleen. Okay, next, I guess back to the development application for considerations. Mr. Menick, would you please come take one of the chairs up front? Good morning. Okay, so this is development application 25/215. Go ahead, Becky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a correction, it's development permit 24/215. This is in Ward 5 for an accessory building, and the owner is Made Mike Muminovic, and the legal description is Southeast 16-12-5 west of the 4th. Property size is 28.92 acres, and the land use district is Agricultural District 1. The proposal is to construct a 40 by 120 shop for personal use. The applicant is requesting the Municipal Planning Commission's consideration to construct a shop that is proposed to be located within the 1 in 100 floodway area, according to the Medicine Hat flood study provided by the province. This results in a requirement for MPC approval. The proposed shop will be 4,800 square feet in size and utilized for personal storage purposes. The applicant has supplied an engineer's review prepared by CFI Engineering and Consulting Limited, dated January 8th, 2025. The engineer has outlined that the province collected their data for flood studies in 2017 and 2018, while the proposed development area was constructed above flood elevation in 2021. In addition, according to the surveyed plan, the elevation of the proposed building site is 699.0 meters to 698.2 meters, while the flood elevation is between 697.6 meters and 696.6 meters. The applicant has recently sold his country residential property located in Cypress County and is requiring the proposed shop to store their belongings until a new property and residence are purchased. As the letter of intent indicates, the previous owner of the property had hauled significant truckloads of dirt to the property to build up the elevation more than 10 feet to mitigate against flood risk. In addition, the applicant has indicated that between the surveyed plan, the engineer's letter, and the previous work done on the property, he is confident in proceeding with the development on the proposed building site. The requirement that an engineer's evaluation for the 1 in 100-year floodplain be submitted to the county in support of a development permit application is to ensure the protection and limit exposure and risk to both the developer and the municipality in the event there is flooding or damage to the property. The land use bylaw regulations are drafted in accordance with the provincial guidance through the Stepping Back from the Water document published by the Government of Alberta. In accordance with Section 16.6.1 of the Land Use Bylaw, the Development Authority shall review each development permit application and determine its compliance with this bylaw. When a development permit application includes variances, requests, or discretionary uses, the Development Authority shall assess the application as outlined based on the following criteria in accordance with Section 646 of the MGA. Unduly interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood or materially interfere with or affect the use, enjoyment, or value of neighboring parcels of land, and the proposed development conforms with the use prescribed for that land or building in the Land Use Bylaw. In the Land Use Bylaw 2022-09, in the Agricultural District 2, an accessory building is a permitted use providing it complies with all other regulations in the bylaw. Under setbacks from water bodies, Section 11.7.7 states that the term water body refers to any river, lake, pond, reservoir, creek, canal, or drainage right-of-way, whether natural or man-made. All setbacks are to be measured from the normal high water mark of the water body. Section 11.7.8 states that development which occurs on land bordering a water body shall be regulated. Where the water body is less than 16 hectares, development shall be set back from the shoreline 30 meters or 100 feet. According to the surveyed plot plan, the applicant exceeds the minimum setback requirements. Section 11.7.9 states in all land use districts, no permanent buildings or structures shall be built within the 1 in 100-year floodplain. Since limited documents exist for Cypress County defining the 1 in 100-year floodplain, any person wanting to locate permanent buildings or structures in a potential flood area must supply a certified declaration by a person who is a qualified water engineer to do so, showing the 1 in 100-year floodplain to ensure that the development lies outside of that area. Section 11.7.10 states that regardless of subsection 11.7.9 and subject to the approval of the Municipal Planning Commission, a developer may apply for a development permit for a development that is proposed and located in an area where there is risk of significant flooding and damage to the property, provided the developer enter into a restrictive covenant and indemnity agreement between the developer and Cypress County to bind the developer and future owners. The municipality will register the restrictive covenant and agreement on the title of the property affected in order to provide notice to interested parties. So we did circulate this application, and Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors replied that the proposed development falls within the permit area of a provincial highway as outlined in the Highways Development and Protection Act regulation and will require a permit from ATEC. Cypress County Public Works replied that they have no comments. Town of Red Cliff replied that they have reviewed the proposed development as forwarded and offers no comments. City of Medicine Hat replied that provided the flooding analysis aligns with the province's updated flood studies, then they have no concerns with this project, and no comments were received from CP Rail at the time of writing this report. So I did take quite a few pictures of the property. So this is from the access approach looking west down Township Road 122. And then looking east down Township Road 122 from the access. And then this is looking north towards the City of Medicine Hat with the proposed building site to the left. So just trying to capture where you can see the dirt was hauled in to create that elevated proposed building site on the left. We're still looking north And we'd be looking down an undeveloped road allowance here. This is just looking back out towards the road from the proposed building site. And looking back north from the proposed building site. Again, just trying to capture the difference in the low-lying area and the proposed building site. Looking northwest at the proposed building site. This is looking north at the rest of the property. Just another shot there. These were my helpers I had that day. So looking east, the neighboring property. And I think just another look there. So that takes me to my recommendations, Mr. Chairman. The first one is to approve development permit application 24-215, subject to the following conditions and with the understanding that it will be constructed as outlined in the submitted application. Any changes must be submitted for approval by the development officer or municipal planning commission. Conditions 1 through 8 are standard conditions, so I'll jump to number 9, which is the applicant is responsible to supply Cypress County with a restrictive covenant and indemnity agreement prepared by a qualified individual to be entered into with Cypress County to bind the developer and future landowners. The restrictive covenant and indemnity agreement are to be registered against the Alberta land title prior to commencement. And number 10, the applicant is responsible to obtain any necessary approvals from Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors. A copy of the approvals to be submitted to the development officer prior to commencement. And I have an alternative motion, and that is to refuse development permit application 24/215 as the proposal and supporting documentation does not comply with section 11.7.9 and is not a suitable building site according to the Medicine Hat flood study. And that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Becky. Mr. Municipal, would you like to speak to your application at this time? Okay, I'll open the floor to discussion, questions.
Sorry, through the chair, if Mr. Meninovich can please use his microphone.
Right, just so there's a button to press there that turns.
Oh. Do I just say again what I said?
Yes, please.
Oh, not really, unless you guys have questions.
Okay. Questions? Did you move the dirt into that property to raise the elevation?
No, industrial backhoes
You're pushing it the wrong way. There you go. Yeah.
No, industrial backhoes did.
Do you own the property?
Yes.
Okay, anything else? Go ahead, Dustin.
So I'm just thinking back to that, I can't remember if it was 2012, 2013, when that flooded through there and took out the train tracks. I'm trying to picture in my mind how high that water came up because I was there for it, but I can't really remember. Because that was probably the biggest flood the Ross Creek's ever seen, that in our lifetime anyways, and I'm pretty sure that property was damn near underwater, along with everything else through there.
Go ahead.
Hello. So my neighbor owns Julio's Electric, and he showed me pictures of when that flood happened a few years ago. The water was at the very end of the property, like where, kind of down a little bit, right about there, like in that area. That's all swampy. But he said where they brought in that dirt, it wasn't even affected, and the train tracks were never taken out.
Yeah, they were.
On those tall ones?
Yeah,
On the left?
it washed them right out. I helped rebuild them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't. From the pictures that we've seen, I never seen any of that, but I don't know.
Do you happen to have those pictures?
I can maybe get them from him, but I don't have them here.
I don't know, personally, just knowing what I've seen there personally in the past, I'm not comfortable with building anything down there.
We have had, I guess, lawsuits to the county based on people that did build in the floodplain, and they actually came after the county for allowing them to build in the floodplain, so I'm a little concerned with this as well.
So wouldn't that's why I'm getting that lawyer to draft up that piece of paper saying that the onus and responsibility is all on me though.
The indemnity clause?
Yeah. So that'd take all the liability away from you guys. I'm comfortable building down there, but.
Go ahead, Dustin.
So even with those indemnity clauses, we've seen it before. They're just as good as the paper is written on. People still have come back after the county, so we'll use the golf courses down there, for example. During the flood back in that 2011, 2012, even though that they had those indemnity clauses for building in the floodplains, they still came back and tried to sue the municipality and the city of Medicine Hat for allowing them to build there, even though there was the paper that it was written on saying that they were responsible if it ever did flood. I speak this too, I live in a floodplain myself, like where my yard is literally in the Seven Persons Creek floodplain, and anything that is below a certain elevation, we can't even get insurance on it. So like, I know my barn down there, if you're familiar with that, Wade, I can't get insurance on that barn because of it being in that floodplain.
I'm fine with that. Like, as far as insurance and stuff's concerned, I know I have insurance on my house. So, I mean, I'm used to that, but I don't know. If you guys need something extra written on a piece of paper from a lawyer, like legality, like they're.
See, what we have to consider is not what your intent is, but maybe even the next purchaser or the purchaser after that. So what you may be fine with is something that is good for today, but it's something the county has to live with in perpetuity. So.
Doesn't that piece of paper transfer from owner to owner?
The indemnity clause would be transferred on title. Would be included on title, yes.
Yeah.
If it doesn't get lost, have they been lost?
Sometimes we've had issues where stuff being transferred over from one owner to the other gets missed, and then we've had things come back to the council or to county where where is that? It was on there and it's not there anymore. It's the land title's issue that it gets missed.
Go ahead, Becky.
Just to remind you that it's not just the indemnity agreement, there's also a restrictive covenant, so both would be drafted and both would be on title. And these are the requirements of the current land use bylaw right now that the applicant is meeting.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, Lloyd.
Well, I understand everything, but if he's willing to take the risk, and we do have some legal documentation, and it meets all the requirements, I don't see how we can stop it.
Okay. Anything else? Discussion? Motions? Lloyd moves approval of development application 24/215 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Opposed? Your development application has been refused because it does not comply with the county's land use bylaw. A copy of the refusal notice will be mailed to you. You will have the ability to appeal this refusal decision to the Development Appeal Board by following the instructions on the notice that you will receive. Please be aware that you only have 3 weeks from the date of notice to file your appeal. If you have any further questions, you may contact the development officer after today's meeting to discuss them. Thank you. Before we go on, excuse me, sir, we have a remove cover policy within the chambers. If you please remove your hat. Thank you. Okay, next application for consideration is subdivision application 24CY12. Is there a representative here for that subdivision? Would you please take a chair up front? Okay, so again, this is development, sorry, please introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Gerald.
Just press it once, you don't have to hold it down.
Hello, my name is Gerald Terry Bethillier. I normally go by Terry. So.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Okay, so again, this is 24CY12. Becky, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a Ward 7 Country Residential Subdivision, number 24CY12. The owner and applicant is Gerald and Jenny Bethillier. This is located along Township Road 124, approximately 9.7 kilometers west of the City of Medicine Hat boundary. The legal description is northeast 2112-7 west of the 4th. And the proposal is to subdivide a 1.93 hectare parcel from a previously subdivided quarter section in order to create a separate title. The application is intended to subdivide a vacant 1.93 hectare or 4.76 acre parcel from a previously subdivided quarter section for the purposes of creating a separate title. The proposed subdivision, as well as the remnant agricultural title, contains dryland pasture and is 48.6 hectares or 120.24 acres in size. The proposed subdivision area is bounded by an undeveloped road allowance to the east and an overland drainage right-of-way to the south and west, and Township Road 124 to the north. The property is located along Township Road 124, adjacent to numerous multi-parcel country residential subdivisions. The proposed subdivision area gently slopes to the southwest towards the adjoining St. Mary's River Irrigation drainage right-of-way. The applicant surveyor has provided a tentative plan verifying an appropriate building envelope which accommodates development setbacks. In addition, there is an existing restrictive covenant on title to ensure that development maintains the appropriate setback of 10 meters from the coulee slope. The proposed subdivision gains direct access from Township Road 124, although there does not appear to be an access approach. Therefore, the Municipal Planning Commission, as a condition of subdivision approval, may need to consider a subdivision approval condition for the installation of a road approach. The remainder of the agricultural title has an existing approach that accesses directly onto Highway 523. The subdivision will be serviced by an on-site cistern and septic tank or field, and there are no oil or gas wells in proximity to the proposed subdivision. The proposed subdivision is located outside of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan boundary. Under relevant legislation, the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan states that municipalities are to identify their agricultural land and to limit fragmentation and conversion to non-agricultural uses. Under the implementation section of the plan, Section 5, Efficient Use of Land, it states that the land use framework promotes approaches to reduce the amount of land that is taken up by permanent or long-term development by utilizing the minimum amount of land necessary. Section 6661 of the Municipal Government Act states that a subdivision authority may require the owner of a parcel of land that is subject of a proposed subdivision to provide reserve. Money in place of municipal reserve is recommended on the subdivided parcel. Part 2.9 Road Access states that every proposed subdivision must provide direct access to a road or lawful means of access satisfactory to the subdivision authority to each lot that is created. Section 4.1.26, Subdivision Residential of the Municipal Development Plan states that the county may support the subdivision of an existing farmstead or single vacant parcel if the following conditions are met. The parcel is redistricted to the appropriate country residential land use. The country residential parcel conforms to the applicable country residential regulation in the land use bylaw. The applicant, at the time of submitting the subdivision application, must comply with the Cypress County Design Guidelines and construction standards for both the existing farmstead and the proposed country residential parcel. The subdivision will not impact or hinder the agricultural use on the balance of the quarter section, and all parcels have direct access to the existing municipal road network or provincial highway. And then utility easements may be required between the proposed parcel and the remainder of the agricultural title. When we circulated this application, Cypress County Finances replied that there are 5 Westside Water Co-op licenses tied to the property. The owner will have to provide detail to Cypress County Finance on the division of the licenses. Cypress County Public Works replied that the proposed subdivision requires a new approach. The applicant will be required to provide an engineered stamp drawing for the approach that shows the sightline distance due to the hills on Township Road 124 at this location. Apex Utilities reply that they have no objection to the proposed subdivision. Please note that we have a high-pressure pipeline right-of-way within the area to be subdivided. No comments were received from Fortis at the time of writing this report. TELUS replied that they will require utility right-of-way in order to provide service to this new development and request that a condition of approval is added for this requirement. Equus replied that they have no objections to the proposed subdivision. They currently provide electrical services to Northeast 21-12-7 west of the 4th and will need to maintain their existing right-of-way. The City of Medicine Hat's Environment, Land, and Gas Production Department replied that they have reviewed the subdivision application and has the following comments. Please refer to the attached maps displaying the gas facilities that are located within the proposed subdivision. Surface improvements are not permitted within the City of Medicine Hat pipeline utility right-of-way and within 100 meters of any City of Medicine Hat wellhead unless the landowner applies to and receives approval from the Alberta Energy Regulator and the city for a setback reduction. And any ground disturbances or surface improvements within 30 meters of any City of Medicine Hat gas pipeline or within 100 meters of any gas wells will require a crossing or proximity agreement. 40 Mile Gas replied that the proposed parcel falls outside of their franchise area. Westside Water Co-op replied that they have a main line running east to west on the north edge of the property, approximately 7 meters south of the property boundary. Given the 40-meter setback from the center line of Township Road 124, this will ensure that no development or structures are constructed within 10 meters of the water line. Therefore, the co-op has no concerns with the subdivision application. Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors replied that the department anticipates minimal impact on the highway from this proposal. In addition, no new direct highway access will be permitted. Access shall be via the local municipal road or existing access. The department expects that the municipality will mitigate the impacts of traffic generated by developments approved on the local road connections to the highway system pursuant to Policy 7 of the Provincial Land Use Policies and Section 618.4 of the Municipal Government Act. Transportation and Economic Corridors accepts no responsibility for the noise impacts or other impacts of highway traffic upon any development or occupants thereof. The subdivision design should include adequate physical features to ensure that the proposed use of land is compatible with the adjacent provincial highway system. The subject land is within the permit area of a highway. However, Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors exempts all residential uses that otherwise comply with the Cypress County Land Use Bylaw from the requirement to obtain a roadside development permit. Any variances or waivers or other uses that are not residential in nature will require the applicant to apply for and obtain a roadside development permit. The Cypress County Assessor provided a market value assessment rate of $14,889.98 per hectare for money in place of municipal reserve purposes. And a letter of opposition has been received from an adjacent landowner, and it has been attached to this report. So I will move on to my recommendation, Mr. Chairman, and that is for approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, the developer is required to make a payment to the county for money in place of municipal reserve for 1.93 hectares at a rate of $1,488.99 per hectare, being 10% of the appraised market value of $14,889.98 per hectare. The payment is to be submitted to the county prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. Number 2, the developer is required to enter into a utility right-of-way agreement with TELUS. The developer is to provide a copy of the executed agreement to the county prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. Number 3, the developer is required to obtain approval from Cypress County Public Works for the construction of a new access approach from Township Road 124 to the new parcel being created. The approach is to be constructed to Cypress County standards prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. Number 4, the developer is required to provide Cypress County Finances with written notification if the intent is to transfer any of the 5 local improvement tax for West Side Water Co-op to the subdivided parcel prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. It is the developer's responsibility to ensure that all necessary agreements are executed with the West Side Water Co-op to transfer the water service connection to the newly created parcel. And number 5, our standard condition, the developer is required to supply copies of any utility right-of-way plans, easements, or agreements which are to be registered as a requirement for any affected utilities to Cypress County prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. And that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Becky. Terry, would you like to add anything to your application? Just push it one more time. There you go.
Yes, not sure if it's necessary at this point. I'd like to thank Becky and the planning department for a great presentation and the work they've put into this on our behalf. I have talked to the, I believe it's Paul in Finance, concerning the comment of the 5 water licenses that were thought to be on the property. And there is only 1 water license on the property. I think a couple owners prior to us having this property had purchased, I believe, 5 water licenses and had paid for them. Those turnouts, so to speak, were sold to, I think it's West Ridge Estates or Westview Estates, which is kind of diagonal and across the road by Range Road 72. So in speaking with Paul, that's been addressed. He understands they're not there, but all fees have been paid on that. Becky, I believe I've talked to you a little bit just concerning road access. There is on 124 a road access that's there. However, that's perhaps been there for, I'm sure, years and years, buried under the snow right now. And I'm sure we will have to confirm that meets all obligations and what have you. So thank you again, and I'd love to answer any questions if you gentlemen have any.
A quick clarification. When I looked at this originally, so the portion of the north is being subdivided from the entire portion that's in the dotted line area, correct? It's not clear.
Yes, so where Ingrid's mouse is right now, the blue arrow,
Oh, okay.
that's the portion to be subdivided
That's the portion.
from the border on this.
Okay, yeah, that wasn't clear in that, okay.
There's already one next to the west of that with a dotted line around it, the horseshoe shape with the property on it. That was subdivided off there several years ago. So yeah, it's just the more triangular portion.
Is that area, now there was, in the comment section of the opponent to the subdivision, is it a lowland? Is that parcel a riparian area?
I do not believe it is. So on that property, it goes from the north all along where it goes east-west. That would be where the road goes across, 124, which is quite high. And then it gently slopes down towards the back. If you look on the southeast, I believe it is, of that triangle, you'll see a white spot, which is some alkali, I believe, which is laying there. So that's definitely been wet in the past. I'm thinking, I'm really don't have any intelligence in that area. I'm thinking probably just below that is the irrigation co-op water runs across the bottom there. And so perhaps at some point in time, there might have been an overflow or something happening there. I've had the property, I think, since about 2018 now, and in that area, we'll go over there from time to time to play with our quads and the grandchildren, and it's dry. So we do have at the very bottom of that photo, there's a pond which has nothing really to do with this. On our title, we have a large pond on that south portion in the photo there. Which is a large pond. That may be the water area that they were talking about. I have no knowledge of Ducks Unlimited ever pursuant to their comments. I have no knowledge of Ducks Unlimited or anything like that ever looking at the property. If so, perhaps there was some discussion with the previous owner regarding the large pond on our property. But other than that, all there is down there is the West Side Irrigation District water running kind of east to west there at the bottom. So sorry for the long answer, but no, it's not a wet area and it's not low to the, Becky would probably be better authority on that, but I would say it's not low. I can't imagine any issues there. I don't see any merit in any of the comments in the opposition letter, and I'm happy to address anything there that you would like. I'm just trying not to be negative.
So the drainage right away, is that held by the SMRID then? Go ahead, Caitlin.
Through the chair, recognizing that SMRID did not reply to the subdivision circulation itself, but yes, that is an overland drainage right-of-way belonging to SMRID. They did reply at the land use amendment stage when this bylaw was in front of council for consideration, and they did comment at that time that they had no concerns, but that is missing from this subdivision circulation. They did not reply.
Okay. All right, open the floor to other discussion. Go ahead, Dan. I have one quick question. So the people that, do you know the people that wrote the letter in opposition? Where do they live in comparison to your subdivision?
Directly to the north of that, across the road on 124 there.
Okay. Okay, so they're more concerned about the view of another construction of a building right there. Yeah. Okay. So in your opinion, there's an envelope to build a residence on that parcel?
Definitely. We had walked the property and tried to stake out everything with the setbacks that would be required, and it's on the northern, the higher portion of the property, and yeah, it seems to be. I think it's a beautiful building envelope there.
Okay, all right, that's all I have. So Dan, you moved it? Okay, so Dan moves approval of subdivision application 24CY12 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried. So your subdivision has been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed. The county will now mail you a copy of your subdivision approval. You're advised to begin working towards completing the necessary conditions and making arrangements to have the approved subdivided area surveyed if you have not already done so. You have 1 year from the subdivision's approval date to have met all of the approval conditions and to have the survey plan submitted to Alberta Land Titles by your surveyor for the registration of the separate title. If you have any further questions, you may contact the planner after today's meeting to discuss them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your help. Excuse me.
Okay, so next subdivision application for consideration, Ward 7, Country Residential Subdivision, application 24CY13. Is there a representative here for that? Would you please take the chairs up front? So there's always an issue. When asked to speak, there's a button you press and it'll light up and then you speak. Yeah, we all get confused on that one. So. Okay, again, this is subdivision application 24CY13. Go ahead, Becky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a Ward 7 Country Residential Subdivision, number 24CY13. The owner of the property is Helmut Doring, and the applicant is Global Raymax Surveys. And this is located at the corner of Range Road 70 and Highway 523 on the northeast 24-12-7 west of the 4th. The proposal is to subdivide an existing 5.51 hectare parcel into 2 adjoining country residential titles. This application is intended to subdivide an existing 5.51 hectare or 13.62 acre parcel into 2 adjoining country residential titles. The established yard currently contains 2 residences. The purpose of the proposed subdivision is to create separate titles for each residence and yard to facilitate the sale of the east parcel. The proposed westerly parcel, proposed Lot 3, is 2.74 hectares or 6.77 acres, while the proposed easterly lot is 2.76 hectares or 6.82 acres. The remainder of the agricultural title contains an irrigation pivot and is 56.9 hectares or 140.83 acres in size, and there are no oil or gas wells within a 100-meter radius of the proposed subdivision. Each yard site has a separate existing access approach, one from Range Road 70 and one from Highway 523. In addition, each yard site contains a residence, its own water and septic field services, as well as multiple accessory buildings. All structures on each parcel comply with the Country Residential District 2 regulations relating to sizes, as outlined in the Land Use Bylaw 2022-09. All structures, with the exception of 3, meet the minimum setback requirements outlined in the Land Use Bylaw. Therefore, the applicant is requesting a setback relaxation as part of the subdivision application process. Cypress County Council recently approved a land use reclassification to Country Residential District 2 to allow the subdivision to be in compliance with the Municipal Development Plan policies. The subdivision will result in the third and final title to be taken out of the quarter section, and the proposed subdivision is located outside of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan boundary. The South Saskatchewan Regional Plan states that municipalities are to identify their agricultural land and to limit fragmentation and conversion to non-agricultural uses. Under the implementation section of the plan, Section 5, Efficient Use of Land, it states that the land use framework promotes approaches to reduce the amount of land that is taken up by permanent or long-term development by utilizing the minimum amount of land necessary. Section 663 of the Municipal Government Act states that a subdivision authority may not require the owner of a parcel of land that is subject of a proposed subdivision to provide reserve if one lot is to be created from a quarter section. Section 6661 states that a subdivision authority may require the owner of a parcel of land that is the subject of a proposed subdivision to provide reserve. Money in place of municipal reserve is recommended on the proposed westerly parcel. I just have a note in here too. In 1997, a caveat was registered on the Alberta land title for the deferment of municipal reserve on 1.35 acres. Therefore, upon payment of municipal reserve for this current application, it is recommended that the caveat be discharged from the title. Part 2.9, Road Access of the Subdivision Regulations of the Municipal Government Act states that every proposed subdivision must provide direct access to a road or lawful means of access satisfactory to the subdivision authority to each lot that is created. Part 18, Distance from a highway, states that a subdivision authority shall not, in a municipality other than a city, approve an application for subdivision if the land that is the subject of the application is within 1.6 kilometers of the central line of a highway right-of-way. Section 19, Service Road, states that if the land is subject of an application for subdivision is within 1.6 kilometers, a service road satisfactory to the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors must be provided. And Section 20, Waiver, states that the requirements of Section 18 and 19 may be varied by a subdivision authority with the written approval of the Minister of Transportation and Economic Corridors. Section 4.1.26, Subdivision Residential of the Municipal Development Plan, states that the county may support additional subdivision of an existing farmstead parcel or a single vacant parcel if the following conditions are met. The parcels are redistricted to the appropriate country residential land use district. The country residential parcels conform to the applicable country residential regulations in the land use bylaw. The applicant at the time of submitting the subdivision application must comply with the Cypress County design guidelines and construction standards for both the existing farmstead or single vacant parcel and the proposed country residential parcel. The subdivision will not impact or hinder the agricultural use on the balance of the quarter section, and all parcels have direct access to the existing municipal road network or provincial highway. In the Land Use Bylaw 2022-09, under the Country Residential District 2, it states that the maximum total building area permitted for one accessory building is 2,400 square feet, and the maximum total building area for all accessory buildings combined is 4,000 square feet. And I'll just add a note in there that the minimum setback requirement from a public road is 40 meters from the center. And utility easements may be required between the proposed parcel and the remainder of the agricultural title. So when we circulated this application, Cypress County Finances replied that there are 4 West Side Water Co-op local improvements associated with this parcel. Therefore, the landowner will have to provide information on how the licenses should be divided. Cypress County Public Works replied that the 2 parcels each have their own access approaches. Apex Utilities replied that they have no objection to the proposed subdivision. Fortis Alberta replied that they have reviewed the plan and determined no easement is required. TELUS replied that they have no concerns with the proposed activities. Equus replied that they have no objections to the proposed subdivision. They currently provide electrical services to Northeast 24-12-7 west of the 4th and will need to maintain their existing right-of-way. St. Mary's River Irrigation District replied that they have reviewed the application and if the subdivision is approved, requires the following conditions are met. If the proposed subdivided homestead lot wishes to use water from the district for the yard site, a household purposes agreement must be signed with the district prior to any water use. All works, easements, etc. involved to provide water to the proposed subdivision will be at the landowner's expense. And in order for SMERD to execute consent to register a subdivision, any outstanding balances owed by the applicant will need to be paid in full. Westside Water Co-op replied that they have no concerns with the subdivision proposal. Each of the proposed acreages has a water co-op service connection on the site to service each of the residences. Once the subdivision process is completed, the owner will be required to contact the co-op to transfer the services to the new titles. Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors replied that in order to ensure future access management requirements are met, a 20-meter wide service road right-of-way by caveat is required along the highway frontage as shown on the attached plan. The department expects that the municipality will mitigate the impacts of traffic generated by developments approved on the local road connections to the highway system pursuant to Policy 7 of the Provincial Land Use Policies and Section 618.4 of the Municipal Government Act. Transportation and Economic Corridors accepts no responsibility for noise impacts or other impacts of highway traffic upon any development or occupants thereof. The subdivision design should include adequate physical features to ensure that the proposed use of land is compatible with the adjacent provincial highway system. Proposed development on the subject lands will require the benefit of a roadside development permit from Transportation and Economic Corridors. And the Cypress County Assessor provided a market value assessment rate of $71,187.90 per hectare for money in place of municipal reserve purposes. So that takes me to my recommendation, Mr. Chairman, and that is for approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, the developer is required to make a payment to the county for money in place of municipal reserve for 2.74 hectares at a rate of $7,118.79 per hectare, being 10% of the appraised market value of $71,187.90 per hectare. The payment is to be submitted to the county prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. Number 2, the developer is required to provide a 20-meter wide service road right-of-way along the highway frontage and the north boundary of the subdivided parcels. The right-of-way is to be registered by caveat at the time of the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. Number 3, the developer is required to provide Cypress County Finances with written notification if the intent is to transfer any of the 4 local improvement tax for Westside Water Co-op to the subdivided parcel prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. It is the developer's responsibility to ensure that all necessary agreements are executed with Westside Water Co-op to transfer the water service connection to the newly created parcel. Number 4, a setback relaxation of 10.9 meters for building number 15, 7.82 meters for building number 16, and 21.66 meters for building number 17 from the center of Range Road 70 as outlined on the attached Schedule A provided by Global Ramax Surveys. And number 5, the developer is required to supply copies of any utility right-of-way plans, easements, or agreements which are to be registered as a requirement for any affected utilities to Cypress County prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles. And that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Becky. Mr. Nichols or Mr. Doring, do you have anything to add to your application?
I know we don't. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Open the floor to discussion. Quick one. Any way we could get some of these setbacks, buildings removed instead of allowing for all these setbacks? Would the applicant be amenable to that?
The building's on the right. He's asking if any of those buildings can be removed.
Well, they'll be removed, they're not in use. They haven't been in use since I quit farming. They're just there because the bottom part was used by my son. That's where the second residence was established when we farmed together. In the meantime, we sort of quit farming completely and he's into other things, or retired. But those buildings are just sitting there, haven't been used in at least 10, 15 years. So they'll be removed in the next short while.
Okay, so we have a commitment to, so any way we could write that into the conditions?
By all means, if I have to, I'll remove them this summer.
Okay. Does that make sense? It's nice to get rid of some of these setback infringements instead of allowing them. If they would be agreeable to that, I mean, can we write that in as a condition? If Planning Commission supports me?
So typically in the past, when we've required further removal of buildings, it is usually attached to a development agreement that we enter into and registered on title. In the case that they're not removed before the property sells, then the new owner's aware of that and then allows for some enforcement measures if they're not removed. Is that something that the board would like written in there as well?
I agree with that. I mean, I can't make the motion, but that's something I think would be. Go ahead, Kayleen.
Through the chair, an alternative to that as well is for a condition for the buildings to be removed prior to the subdivision being endorsed. So if you were to put a timeline on the condition that they need to be removed by January 30th, we wouldn't actually endorse the subdivision for land title registration until those buildings are removed. So in addition to Becky's suggestion for the development agreement, there is another alternative pending what the Planning Commission desires.
Go ahead, Dan.
So how soon does this need to be done though, like for the sale of it? Or is it immediate that this is going to be sold off, or?
No, I have no, it's just the future because I'm going to be 90 years old next month. And sooner or later I have to dispose of both of them, even the one I'm living in, the other one. And but the way it was with both connected, it was just about impossible, and so this is why I apply for the subdivision. And as a matter of fact, the people that live in the east partial, they're relatives, friends of mine. They've been there for years, and they're sort of helping me, keeping the yard, plowing the snow and stuff. They might be interested, but so far I haven't gone ahead with any listings or anything. Just want to have it subdivided first.
Okay, thank you. Right.
So for timelines, then we give them till August then?
Is that, yeah, is August good
August
for
works to
removal of
get
those?
that done? Just the ones in the circle?
Well, I'll remove them this summer.
Okay, all right, okay. So, before we have any more discussion? So Dustin, are you making a motion, you said?
I'm moving with those conditions.
Okay, so let's clarify that condition before we pose the question.
Sure, through the chair. So I've got subject to the removal of buildings number 15, number 16, and number 17 as outlined on the attached Schedule A provided by Global Remax Surveys prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta Land Titles.
Okay, is that good?
Did you say 14 with that?
Sorry?
Did you have number 14 on that?
No, number 15, number 16, and number 17.
Add 14 and leave 13 alone.
I guess the question is, Mr. Doring, which, are all those wood granaries any good for anything anymore? Like, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them? Are they all kind of garbage, or or is there any that are salvageable?
Are any of those buildings salvageable, or are they all?
Well, they're just wooden granaries from what they used to be 20, 30 years ago, and they're just sitting empty, so I'll just take them apart, either burn them or whatever.
So add 13 through 17 then, all of them.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm just clarifying that is in place of condition number 4. Obviously, we're taking that right out and replacing it with this.
Dustin, does that make sense with your motion? Confirmed. Okay. All right, so Dustin moves approval of subdivision application 24 CY 13 with conditions as amended. All those in favor? Carried. Your subdivision has been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed. The county will now mail you a copy of your subdivision approval. You are advised to begin working towards completing the necessary conditions and making arrangements to have the approved subdivided area surveyed if you have not already done so. You have 1 year from the subdivision's approval date to have met all of the approval conditions and to have the survey plan submitted to the Alberta Land Titles by your surveyor for registration of the separate title. If you have any further questions, you may contact the planner after today's meeting. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for your time.
Next meeting, March 11th, 2025. I adjourn the meeting.